Important message to the person watching this video: see this silver ring, notice it is silver and not blue. I will not be lectured on the occult, real history and facts. I am a typologist with over 30 years reading deadest scrolls and biblical texts. I will not be told I'm not a Christian when I am. I was given the secrets from a very young age in secret. I know who God really is, I know his real name, I know Christ came, and I know Christ visited every known country, and came to earth many times before. I've tried to be somewhat discreet, my videos while basic, some spelling errors and slight mistakes was aimed to make you think, or simply follow up or research yourself, to make you question. But as time is coming to an end, I will reveal the secrets and truth one last time. Because people just aren't interested in truth but only the extreme and crazy answers that contain lots of theories but proved zero proof. In the occult world they like the fact you people are so far off the mark, they are running rings around the human race. And have been for the last 45,000 years. So, once again I will show you the Dead Sea Scrolls Book of Kings. But even with authentication, approved printed books by the church, you still will deny the facts. Because you're an idiotic fool. Or maybe you are actually interested. Fragment of the Book of Noah. And after some days my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant by him and bore a son. And his body was white as snow and red as the blooming of a rose, and the hair of his head and his long locks were white as wool, and his eyes pleasant. And when he opened his eyes, he lit up the whole house like the sun, and the whole house was very bright. And after that he rose in the hands of the midwife, opened his mouth, and conversed with Most High of righteousness. And his father Lamech was afraid of him and fled, and came to his father Methuselah. And he said unto him, I have begotten a strange son, different from and unlike man, and resembling the sons of the Eloah, of the Shemaim, and his nature is different and he is not like us, and his eyes are as the rays of the sun, and his face is magnificent. And it seems to me that he is not brought forth from me but from the messengers, and I fear that in his days a wonder may be wrought on the earth. Book of Revelation 1:9. I observed 7 golden lampstands, and in the center of the lampstands, one like to the Son of Man, clad in a long robe, and fastened at the waist with a golden belt. His head and his hair were white, like white wool, like snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire, and his feet like shining brass, when melting in a crucible, and his voice like the sound of many waters, and holding in his right hand 7 stars, and a sharp, double-edged sword drawn from its sheath, and his face was as when the sun shines in his strength. Revelation 10:10. Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from the heaven, robed in a cloud, and the rainbow encircled his head, and his face like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire, and holding in his hand a very small open book, and he placed his right foot upon the sea, but his left upon the land, while, with a loud voice, resembling the roaring of a lion, he roared. Revelation 22:16. I, Jesus, have sent my messenger to you, to declare these events in the assemblies. I am the root, and the offspring, of David, the radiant, the morning star. Exodus 22. If a thief is found breaking in, and is struck and dies, there is not blood guilt for him. If the sun was shining on him, he may redeem his blood. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for stealing. Kings 1:5.9. And God gave to Solomon very great wisdom and understanding, and wide intelligence, like the sand on the seashore. For Solomon's scientific knowledge was more extensive than the science of all the Beni Kedem, and than all the science of the Mitzrayim. He knew more than all men of the orbits, of the planets, of the origination of light, and fixed, sustaining systems, and the results of the revolving spheres. Nullos Copernicus. You're 2,000 years out of date. Astrology is the Babylonian mysteries, the Egyptian mysteries, Assyrian, Hittite mysteries and the occult. Everything is, and always was astrology. Magic is all astrology and cycles. Kings 2:20,11. It is easy for the shadow to advance 10 degrees on the sundial, but not for the shadow to go back 10 degrees. But Isaiah the preacher called to the ever-living, and the shadow turned back from the advance, which it had gone upon the sundial of Ahats, receding 10 degrees. Isaiah 38:3 Thus says the ever-living God of David your ancestor, I have heard your prayer, I have seen your tears, so I will add 15 years to your days. I will also rescue you and this city from the hand of the king of Ashur, and will shield this town, and this shall be a proof to you from the ever-living, that the ever-living will effect the event of which he has promised. I will return the advancing shadow on the dial which has passed down on the sundial of Ahats from the sun, 10 degrees backwards, so that 10 degrees of the dial shall return on the sundial which they had gone down. I won't be taken for an idiot, so I decided to check these two verses myself with an astronomy software. I set the solstices and equinoxes, and set the ecliptic grid and poles, and set the location in Israel, and I was indeed right. The actual date is 764 BC and the king of Ashur, his actual name is Ashur-dan III, so this proves 4 things. 1. King Ahats is a real king. 2. The sundial actually existed. 3. There was indeed an partial eclipse in Israel on this date. 4. There was a king of Ashur at this point in time, so King Ahats was alive at the time of King Ashur-dan III. Only it seems the academics got King Ahats' age wrong. They are out by about 15 to 20 years, nonetheless the events actually happened. That's why Isaiah called the ever-living the sun. That's because shadows recede backwards to the forward light. Ezekiel 8:16 Then he took me to the inner court of the house of the ever-living, and I saw before the temple of the ever-living, between the porch and the altar, about 25 persons with their back towards the temple of the ever-living, and their faces towards the east, and they were worshipping the eastern sun. Ezekiel 10:18 Breath of life in them. Then the splendor of the ever-living removed from over the threshold of the house, and rested over the cherubim, and the cherubs raised their wings from the earth in my sight to depart, and the wheels went with them, and stood opposite the eastern gate of the house of the ever-living, and the splendor of the God of Israel was above them. Kings 2:23-10 He also defiled the furnace in the valley of the sons of Kinnon, where they passed their sons and daughters through the fire to Moloch, and destroyed the horses that the kings of Judah had dedicated to the sun, at the entry of the temple of the ever-living, near the chamber of Nathan-Melch the eunuch, who was superintendent of the horses, and the chariots of the sun, which he burnt with fire, and the altars also that were upon the embankment of the aqueduct of Ahats, which the kings of Judah had made. Publicly the God of Israel, Judah, is the ever-living God, the sun, and is why people face east to pray. But, secretly the God of Israel is Venus, Lucifer or Ahriman. And so did every ancient civilizations in history and every religion in history. That's why the Book of Kings constantly tips between good and evil. Ezekiel 11 Thus when the wind lifted, and brought me to the eastern gate of the house of the ever-living, facing eastwards, I saw opposite the gate 25 men, and observed in the center of them Jezaniah ben Ezer, and Platia, ben Benja, princes of the people. Ezekiel 43 He then brought me to the gate facing towards the east, and I saw the glorious God of Israel, come from the way of the east, with a sound like the sound of many waters, and the earth was enlightened by his splendor. And the appearance of the vision that I saw was like the appearance which I saw when I came to the destruction of the city, and visions like the appearance that I saw by the great river, and I fell on my face. But the glorious life came to the temple by way of the gate that faces towards the east, and the wind lifted me up and brought me to the inner court, and I saw the house full of the splendor of the life. Then I heard from the temple an address to myself, and a man came and stood beside me, and said to me, Son of Adam, the place for my throne, and the place for the soles of my feet, where I will stay amongst the children of Israel forever. For the house of Israel will not again degrade my holy name. As I've shown, the 12 flags are the 12 months of the year. The flags are colored in accordance with the months of the year, spring, summer, autumn and winter. The sun is in the center of the floor, or the checkered carpet, physical and astral duality, because the temple itself represents the earth and sky and solar system. Thus the sun is in the center of the temple, So the temple is actually the zodiac. The altar is placed upon the sun. On the altar the square is placed upon it. The square is man, and the compass is placed upon on the square. The compass is the astral, to measure the circumference of the planet orbits. The 5 pillars around the sun are the 5 planets, in their current orbit around the sun. Each planet is connected to man and each planet has influences. The temple is oriented east, south and west where the sun traverses. North is where the sun has no power, it is north, which is the Temple of Solomon. Rituals are performed 3 times in a row. Speech, movement, thought and emotion from the heart, the forehead, repeated in cycles, will create an effect. Asherah, Ashtaroth, Aphrodite, is connected to the planet Venus. Hebrew, Romanized Asira, Ugaritic, Romanized Atratu, Akkadian, Romanized Aserat, Ktubanian, is the great goddess in ancient Semitic religion. She also appears in Hittite writings as Asatus or Asertus Hittite, Romanized Aseatu. Her name was Ataratum to the Amorites, and Atharatu in Ugarit. Many scholars hold that Yahweh and Asherah were a consort pair in ancient Israel and Judah, although others disagree. Baal is Jupiter, which we know from the magnum opus, Doctrine of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, written by 33rd degree, Albert Pike, which reads, 25th degree Knight of the Brazen Serpent. The Pleiades, under the name of Succoth-Beneth, were worshipped by the Babylonian colonists who settled in the country of the Samaritans. Saturn, under the name of Remphan, was worshipped among the Copts. The planet Jupiter was worshipped as Bel or Baal, Mars as Malak, Melesh or Moloch, Venus as Ashtaroth or Astarte, and Mercury as Nebo, among the Syrians, Assyrians, Phoenicians and Canaanites. 23rd degree, Chief of the Tabernacle, the candlestick with 7 branches, upon the apron, represents what were anciently known as the 7 planets or principal heavenly bodies: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Moon, Venus and Mercury, and the 7 angels that the Hebrews assigned to their government: to Saturn Michael, to Jupiter Gabriel, to Mars Uriel, to the Sun, Zerachiel, to the Moon, Sophiel, to Venus Hamaliel, and to Mercury Raphael, signifying, in Hebrew, respectively, the semblance, the strength, the fire, the rising, the messenger, the mercy and the healing, of Al, the great Semitic god of the ancient patriarchs, as to whom and these planets and angels, and their connection with Masonry, you will be more fully instructed as you advance. 32nd degree, Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret, which colors were anciently assigned to the several planets, as follows: white, to the Moon; yellow, to the Sun; blue, to Jupiter; black, to Saturn; green, to Venus; purple, to Mercury; and crimson, to Mars. Okay, let's take a verse from the Book of Thoth, or the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Used I the drum of the serpent, wore I the robe of the purple and gold, placed on my head, I, the crown of silver, around me the circle of cinnabar shone, raised I my arms and cried the invocation that opens the path to the plains beyond, cried to the lords of the signs in their houses, lords of the 2 horizons, watchers of the treble gates, stand ye one at the right and one at the left as the star rises to his throne and rules over his sign. I, thou dark prince of Arulu, open the gates of the dim, hidden land and release her whom ye keep imprisoned. Let me translate in occult speak. Thoth bangs the drum of the serpent. The serpent is a planet, because all planets move in retrograde and appears from Earth. The planets move like serpents as they cross our sky over the coming days and months. Planets do not move in complete straight lines. But if you knew astrology, you would fully understand why planets and sun are always depicted as serpents. Thoth wears purple and gold robes. That means Thoth wears the colors of the Sun and Mercury. He wears a silver crown while standing in a circle of cinnabar shon, which is liquid mercury metal. His ritual is on the equinox of the new age as the sun rises in its sign or house. 24th degree, Prince of the Tabernacle. We learn this from Celsius, in Origen, who says that the symbolic image of this passage among the stars, need in the Mythene mysteries, was a ladder, reaching from earth to heaven. divided into 7 steps or stages, to each of which was a gate, and at the summit an 8th, that of the fixed stars. The first gate, says Celsius, was that of Saturn, and of lead, by the heavy nature whereof his dull slow progress was symbolized. The second, of tin, was that of Venus, symbolizing her soft splendor and easy flexibility. The third, of brass, was that of Jupiter, emblem of his solidity and dry nature. The fourth, of iron, was that of Mercury, expressing his indefatigable activity and sagacity. The fifth, of copper, was that of Mars, expressive of his inequalities and variable nature. The sixth, of silver, was that of the moon, and the seventh, of gold, that of the sun. In Saturn, it acquires the power of reasoning and intelligence, or what is termed the logical and contemplative faculty. From Jupiter it receives the power of action. Mars gives it valor, enterprise and impetuosity. From the sun, it receives the senses and imagination, which produce sensation, perception and thought. Venus inspires it with desires. Mercury gives it the faculty of expressing and enunciating what it thinks and feels. And, on entering the sphere of the moon, it acquires the force of generation and growth. This lunary sphere, lowest and basest to divine bodies, is first and highest to terrestrial bodies. And the lunary body there assumed by the soul, while are it were the sediment of celestial matter, is also the first substance of animal matter. The celestial bodies, heaven, the stars and the other divine elements, ever aspire to rise. The soul, reaching the region which mortality inhabits, tends towards terrestrial bodies, and is deemed to die. Let no one, says Macrobidas, be surprised that we so frequently speak of the death of this soul, which yet we call immortal. It is neither annulled nor destroyed by such death, but merely enfeebled for a time, and does not thereby forfeit its prerogative of immortality, for afterwards, freed from the body, when it has been purified. 17th degree, night of the east and west, the image of Ahriman, was there, dragon, confounded by the Jews with Satan, and the serpent tempter, after a reign of 3,000 years, almost had created the material world, in 0 periods, calling successively into existence the light, water, earth, plants, animals and man. But Ahriman concurred in creating the earth and water, or darkness was already an element, and almost could not exclude its blaster. So also the two concurred in producing man. Almost produced, by his will and word, a being that was the type and source of universal life for everything that exists under heaven. He placed in man a pure principle, or life, proceeding from the Supreme Being. But Ahriman destroyed that pure principle, in the form wherewith it was clothed, and when almost had made, of its recovered and purified essence, the first man and woman, Ahriman seduced and tempted them with wine and fruits, the woman yielding first. Often, during the latter periods of 3,000 years each, Ahriman and darkness are, and are to be triumphant. But the pure souls are assisted by the good spirits. The triumph of good is decreed by the Supreme Being, and the period of that triumph will infallibly arrive, when the world shall be most afflicted with the evils poured out upon it by the spirits of perdition. 3 prophets will come to bring relief to mortals. Sosraska, the principal of the 3, will regenerate the earth, and restore to it its primitive beauty, strength and purity. He will judge the good and the wicked. After the universal resurrection of the good, he will conduct them to a home of everlasting happiness. Ahriman, his evil demons, and all wicked men will also be purified in a torrent of melted metal. The law of Ormuzd will reign everywhere. All men will be happy, all, enjoying unalterable bliss, will sing with Susiush the praises of the Supremo Being. These doctrines, the details of which were sparingly borrowed by the Jews, were much more fully adopted by the Gnostics, who taught the restoration of all things, their return to their original pure condition, the happiness of those to be saved, and their admission to the feast of heavenly wisdom. The doctrines of Zoroaster came originally from Icaria, an Indian province of Persia. 28th degree, night of the sun, or night adept. Ahriman was by some Parsi sects considered older than Ormuzd. As darkness is older than light, he is imagined to have been unknown as a malevolent being in the early ages of the world. and the fall of man is attributed in the Boundary Hesh, to an apostate worship of him, from which men were converted by a succession of prophets terminating with Zoroaster. Mithras is not only light, but intelligence, that luminary which, though born in obscurity, will not only dispel darkness, but conquer death. The warfare through which this consummation is to be reached, is mainly carried on through the instrumentality of the Word, that ever-living emulation of the Deity, by virtue of which the world exists, and of which the revealed formulas incessantly repeated in the liturgies of the Magi are but the expression. "What shall I do?" cried Zoroaster, "O almost steeped in brightness, in order to battle with Darujaruman, father of the evil law? How shall I make men pure and holy?" Almost answered and said, "Invoke, Zoroaster, the pure law of the servants of Ormuzd, invoke the Amish or Spenta, who shed abundance throughout the 7 Kesh wars, invoke the heaven, Zeranuakarana, the birds travailing on high, the swift wind, the earth, invoke my spirit, me who am Maharala's Tao, the purest, strongest, wisest, beat of beings, me who have the most majestic body, who through purity am supreme, whose soul is the excellent word, and you, all people, invoke me as I have commanded." Zoroaster, Ahura Mazda, himself is the living one. He is called firstborn of all things, express image of the eternal, very light of very light, the Creator, who by power of the word which he never ceases to pronounce, made in 365 days the heaven and the earth. The word is said in the Yashana, to have existed before all, and to be itself a Yazata, a personified object of prayer. It was revealed in Saroach, in Homer, and again, under Kushtasp, was manifested in Zoroaster. Between life and death, between sunshine and shade, Mithras is the present exemplification of the primal unity from which all things arose, and into which through his mediation all contrarieties will ultimately be absorbed. His annual sacrifice is the Passover of the Magi, a symbolical atonement or pledge of moral and physical regeneration. Light created the world in the beginning, and as at the close of each successive year he sets free the current of life to invigorate a fresh circle of being, so in the end of all things he will bring the weary sum of ages as a hecatomb before God, releasing by a final sacrifice the soul of nature from her perishable frame to commence a brighter and purer existence. 23rd degree, Chief of the Tabernacle. In the ancient mysteries, the presiding officer, or Hierophant, wore the emblems of the supreme deity, as the master of a lodge still represents the high priest of Anu. The sun and the moon were, and are still, the emblems of the 2 wardens, who answer to the 2 next officers in the mysteries, by whom the same emblems were worn, the torchbearer, and Fate, the sacrificer. The blazing star was the image of Horus, the son of Osiris or the sun, author of the seasons, and the god of time, son of Isis, the primitive matter, inexhaustible source of life, spark of untreated fire, the universal seed of all beings. It represented also Anubis, or the dog star, the faithful guide of Isis, and the herald of approaching inundation to the Egyptians. The Christian Masons made it an emblem of that star in the east that led the 3 Magi to Bethlehem. The seat of the Master is called the East, because the mysteries come from the Orient and because he represents Osiris or the Sunday. The word of the fellow craft has an astronomical meaning that again connects Masonry with the primitive times, setting the celestial globe for the place where the temple was built, and the season of the year. The torch which it bears in its pure hand, it has never used to light a flame anywhere upon the earth, but solely to enlighten men, for it grieves for and flees from error, but it neither hates nor persecutes, and finally its object is to make of the whole human race a single family of brothers, united in love, knowledge and labor. Thus, opening its temple to all men, to the Jew, the Mahometan, the adorers of Buddha, and as well as to the Christian, without identifying itself with any of these rites, it can follow the standard of none of their prophets, but it adopts and practices whatever of the doctrines and precepts of each is conformable to universal morality, and to that primitive religion first taught to the ancient patriarchs. 23rd degree, Chief of the Tabernacle. From Egypt, the mysteries went to Phoenicia, and were celebrated at Tyre. Osiris changed his name, and became Adoni, or Dionysos, still the representative of the sun, and afterwards these mysteries were introduced successively into Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Sicily, and Italy. Greece and Sicily, Osiris took the name of Bacchus, and Isis that of Ceres, Cybele, Rhea and Venus. Bar Hebrews says Enoch was the first who invented books and different sorts of writing. The ancient Greeks declare that Enoch is the same as Mercury Trismegistus, Hermes, and that he taught the eons of men the art of building cities, and enacted some admirable laws. He discovered the knowledge of the zodiac, and the course of the planets, and he pointed out to the sons of men, that they should worship God, that they should fast, that they should pray, that they should give alms, votive offerings and tenths. He reprobated abominable fonds and drunkenness, and appointed festivals for sacrifices to the sun, at each of the zodiacal signs. Mantho extracted his history from certain pillars which he discovered in Egypt, whereon inscriptions had been made by Thoth, or the first Mercury, or Hermes, in the sacred letters and dialect, but which were after the flood, translated from that dialect into the Greek tongue, and laid up in the private recesses of the Egyptian temples. These pillars were found in subterranean caverns, near Thebes and beyond the Nile, not far from the sounding statue of Memnon, in a place called Syringes, which are described to be certain winding apartments underground made, it is said, by those who were skilled in ancient rites, who, foreseeing the coming of the deluge, and fearing lest the memory of their ceremonies should be obliterated, built and contrived vaults, dug with vast labor, in several places. From the bosom of Egypt sprang a man of consummate wisdom, initiated in the secret knowledge of India, of Persia and of Ethiopia, named Thoth, author by his compatriots, taught by the Phoenicians, Hermes Trismegistus by the Greeks, and Tris by the Robins. Nature seemed to have chosen him for bar favorite, and to have lavished on him all the qualities necessary to enable him to study lyre and to know her thoroughly. The deity had, so to say, infused into him the sciences and the arts, in order that he might instruct the whole world. 24th degree, Prince of the Tabernacle. Diodorus speaks of the famous columns erected near Nizar, in Arabia, where, it was said, were two of the tombs of Osiris and Isis. On one was this inscription: I am Isis, queen of this country. I was instructed by Mercury. No one can destroy the laws which I have established. I am the eldest daughter of Saturn, most ancient of the gods. I am the wife and sister of Osiris the king. I first made known to mortals the use of wheat. I am the mother of Horus the king. In my honor was the city of Bubastis built. Rejoice, 0 Egypt, rejoice, land that gave me birth. And on the other was this: I am Osiris the king, who led my armies into all parts of the world, to the most thickly inhabited countries of India, the north, the Danube, and the ocean. I am the eldest son of Saturn. I was born of the brilliant and magnificent egg, and my substance is of the same nature as that which composes light. There is no place in the universe where I have not appeared, to bestow my benefits and make known my discoveries. The rest was illegible. To aid her in the search for the body of Osiris, and to nurse her infant child horns, Isis sought out and took with her Anubis, son of Osiris, and his sister Nephite. He, as we have said, was Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens. After finding him, she went to Byblos, and seated herself near a fountain, where she had learned that the sacred chest had stopped which contained the body of Osiris. 12th degree, Grand Master Architect. 1. The hangings are white, strewed with crimson flames. Behind the master, in the east, are 5 columns, each of a different order of architecture: Tuscan, Dun, Ionic, Corinthian and Composite. In the north is painted the North Star, and a little below it the 7 stars of the Great Bear. In the heat, behind the columns, is a luminous star, representing Jupiter, rising in the east as the morning star. Upon the altar, which is in the center of the room, are the Holy Bible, and on it all the instruments contained in a cane of mathematical instruments. The chapter is lighted by 3 great lights, one in the east, one in the west, and one in the south. Over the columns, in the east, hangs a triangle, enclosing the word, Adoni. 2. The morning star, rising in the east, is an emblem to us of the ever-approaching dawn of perfection and Masonic light. 3. The morning star glitters in the east, on the shoulders of the hills, over the desert, and the 7 are low in the north. 4. Announce to the brethren, through the zealous Pro J.W., that the first faint blush of dawn dims the light of the morning star, and this preceptory is about to be opened, charging them according to the ancient custom. The first faint blush of dawn dims the light of the morning star, and this preceptory is about to be opened. Announce this to the brethren, with the ancient charge. 5. Faithful brethren, essence that wait for the light and the new law, the first faint blush of the coming dawn, long waited for, begins to dim the splendor of the morning star. The glittering 7 fade into the far north, and the day cometh, and this precoptery is now about to be opened. 6. He that overcometh, and laboureth in my service until the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and his influences shall control and guide them, and I will give him the morning star. 7. But the 7 stars sink low in the north, the Pleiades and Orion are in the zenith. The morning star grows pale, the dawn, long expected, approaches. 8. Thy Father, it is the hour to replenish the fire that burns continually upon their altar of burnt offering, and to prepare for the morning sacrifice. 9. Attend to that duty, and inform the captain of the guards that we are about to open this assembly, to carry forth the ashes from the altar, and to prepare for the morning sacrifice, and instruct him to see that none approach, save those appointed for that service, lest they die. 10. Most potent leader, it is the break of day, of the morning of the vernal equinox. The godlike child sits upon the waters in the gates of the Orient, not yet arisen, while the earth awaits to rejoice at the blessing of his smiles. The circle surmounted by the crescent shines in the heavens, and in the sign of the celestial bull, house of Venus and place of the moon's exaltation, the sun, mighty with a new life, and the new moon are in conjunction, and open the new year and the Chaldean sun, while, blushing and reluctant, the beautiful star, Amalti, arises with the sun in the east. Venus. In the book of Job, the morning stars and the sons of God are identified. Job 7. They join in the same chorus of praise to the Almighty. They are both susceptible of joy, they walk in brightness. Job 26. And are liable to impurity and imperfection in the sight of God. Job 15. The potentates of the sky, the appropriate types of all earthly authority. Gen 9. Numbers 17 is being thus indistinguishable from heavenly beings. The history of the origin of both is supposed to be sufficiently explained, when it is said that God by his word made all the host of heaven. In Job, the morning stars and the sons of God are identified. They join in the same chorus of praise to the Almighty. They are both susceptible of joy, they walk in brightness, and are liable to impurity and imperfection in the sight of God. The Elohim originally included not only foreign superstitious firms, but also all that host of heaven which was revealed in poetry. To the shepherds of the desert, now as an encampment of warriors, now as careering in chariots of fire, and now as winged messengers, ascending and descending the vault of heaven, to communicate the will of God to mankind. Let's look at Theses' verses and explains how the antediluvian occult survived the Great Flood, and other verses in the doctrine of Freemasonry. 1. In a place called syringes, which are described to be certain winding apartments underground made, it is said, by those who were skilled in ancient rites, who, foreseeing the coming of the deluge, and fearing lest the memory of their ceremonies should be obliterated, built and contrived vaults, dug with vast labor, in several places. This is interesting because the unelected world elites would also build vaults containing the occult in case of such apocalypse. 2. Isis is the daughter of Saturn, Osiris is the son of Saturn, their son Horus, city of Bubastis he built. Egyptology failed to admit all the Egyptian gods are related to Saturn, and tell you lies to hide the occult past. 3. Ahriman, is mentioned many times in the Scottish Rite. Ahriman is Satan, the evil, and darkness. Ahriman is older than time itself because darkness came before the light, and the torch-bearer, often called Prometheus, is not a physical torch, nor to ignite fires on earth, but is a torch of spiritual light and divine intellect, and this battle of light and darkness works in cycles. Even Albert Pike admits the second coming of the light, to come and extinguish the darkness ending its cycle. So, how does it all work, you ask? The sun is a reflector, that reflects vitality and intellect of all the collective planets. Lucifer, Prometheus, Venus, which is between the sun and earth, steals the light or intellect, on the morning rise before the sun breaks dawn. And as the sun passes over the sky, the knowledge passed directly to the Mason or Luciferians. Lucifer is intellect and spiritual. He can teach you things like speaking, reading many languages. Ahriman, however, is all about the physical material. He will teach you conquest and self-adornment, war and technology. They are at a conflict with each other. 4. And the Book of Job is actually about the two morning stars and the sons of God. 5. Asherah, Ashtaroth, Aphrodite, Ahura Mazda, morning star, Venus. 6. Ahriman, dawnbreaker, evening star, Venus. 7. Jacob's ladder was a column of stars which passed the 7 planets or gates. Done. I told you the secrets of the occult, that New Age is lies, altering reality is lies, law of attraction is lies, casting spells with no understanding of equinoxes and solstices is ignorant, spells are rituals, numbers no less than 4, repeated in cycles, adorning correct colors and using the correct metals, instruments, repeated over the 8-year cycles of Venus, Lucifer, Prometheus. Is the actual fucking occult. In fact, read the entire 33rd degree, and Rosicrucian doctrine and find such super beings and reality-bending knowledge and Superman powers, I dare you, because if you believe such childish things then you really are that stupid. Like you really believe your mind and ego can bend reality like Gandalf or Thanos, or simply think I want a Bentley, and it appears on your driveway. What a fucking joke. Let me make this very clear. In order to reach a high level or degree you need to have a certain level of intellect in the first place, such as, are you an architect? Or a mathematician? Engineer? To even reach 25th or 28th degree you would need a high level of intelligence, to understand geometry, geometrics, mathematics, cycles of individual planets, cycles and retrograde of Venus, constellations, cycles of the Earth. Memorize all the ritualistic practices and verses. It is not simply worship a god and suddenly you're enlightened. It takes exactly 7 years just to pass first to second degree working with the 8-year cycle of Venus. But of course, this is YouTube and you're already an expert, so why am I bothering? I told you the full first to 33rd degree doctrine of working the cycles of astrology. I told you the secrets of 369, which is nothing to do with electricity, 3 the physical, 6 the spiritual, 9 the resolves. I told you about the 96th and 97th degree, Aleister Crowley knowledge of reincarnation. I told you that Anu is the god of the sky and the Anunnaki are the humans, his children, and the Igi are the stars who watch over mankind. Screw you, Zechariah Sitchin. I told the date of the first man of mankind 490,685 BC. I told you the date of the first king of mankind 34,685 BC. I told you the date of the Great Flood 35,000 BC. I told you the date of the antediluvians 43,2000 BC. I showed you the world year, 24,510 years 3 months and 3 days, and the earth tilts 1 degree every 72 years, not climate change. I proved Jupiter caused the flood. I proved the tablet of destiny is the red spot on Jupiter's chest. I proved the blue crown of Egypt is the crown of both hemispheres, and not war. I proved the Sphinx is a monument of the sun built on top of a pedestal chamber with a tunnel linking the third pyramid. I showed you that pyramids are in the Dead Sea Scroll book of Exodus. The foreign conquer Cambyses is the Egyptian king of Moses. King Solomon knew the orbits of the planets and orientation of the sun, and Ahat's sundial went backwards 10 degrees due to a partial eclipse, and I even dated it. King David's temple is orientated with the eastern sun. King Judah, David, Solomon worshipped the sun. And King Hiram and Hiram-Abib are the same person. I told you the Sumerian real name of Adam and where it originates, and Cain and Abel are actually one and the same person. I told you the secrets of Enoch. The corrupted modern translations hide the Cro-Magnon's peoples as angels or mythic, when Aryans are real proven history, who were on Earth long before mankind. The elites don't want you to know the Aryans existed at all. Because the Aryans are the original Freemasons, the elites, royal bloodline links. I showed you the Fallen One's primary teaching was astrology and enchantments to mankind. I showed you the real name of God and where God actually rests. I showed you the 3 gods of the Bible. The ever-living God, the Son, God with a capitals G, is Saturn. Lord God is Baal. I own around 1,500 Assyriology books and only read 13%. I own the complete Egyptology doctrine, including the entire inventory, and only read 40%. I own the complete Hittite archive and only read 30%. I own the complete Dead Sea Scrolls Old Testament and Dead Sea Scrolls Book of Enoch and read 100%. I own the complete works by Macrobids. I own the Cradle of the Aryans 1889 and read 100%. I own the complete Mayan Aztec archive and read 50%. So, what about you? Back to this verse, I, Jesus, have sent my messenger to you, to declare these events in the assemblies. I am the root, and the offspring, of David, the radiant, the morning star. Noah, Enoch, Jesus, Lucifer, Prometheus, Ishtar, Astartes, Quetzalcoatl, Venus, the radiant, the morning star. The shining one, Christ. Venus is Prometheus, Enoch, who cannot die because he walks with the sun. Venus, Prometheus, the Christ, was Prometheus, the savior of mankind, who out of his free will gave the light to mankind and sacrificed himself for humanity. Prometheus, the Christ, out of his free will gave Enoch the intellect, who taught righteousness to humanity, wrote the zodiac, named the stars, named the constellations, the orientation of the earth, the number of days in a year, the moon cycles. Prometheus, the Christ, out of his free will gave Noah, the intellect of mathematics, carpentry, farming to build a small ship to save humanity. Prometheus, the Christ, out of his free will gave Quetzalcoatl, the intellect of Christ to save the Mayan civilization from the barbaric satanic ways, who taught them and ascended back to the sea. Prometheus, the Christ, out of his free will gave Akhenaten, the intellect to end the corrupted Amun priesthood, and afterlife belief, where in order to reach the afterlife, you had to pay a great fee to the Amun priests, namely the Book of the Dead, which costs the average Egyptian 3 times a yearly wage, as well as monthly tributes to their temples, along with multiple hierarchy of gods. Akhenaten simply made religion open to all, publicly. The Aten sun disk is indeed the sun, but as you can see, that it is the serpent, that is Prometheus, Lucifer, who is spreading his Christ intellect to humanity, before he was assassinated along with his family. Prometheus, the Christ, out of his free will, gave King Cyrus the intellect and wisdom to end the Assyrian and Babylonian corrupted empires, the bindings and free slaves, and mysteriously died. Prometheus, the Christ, out of his free will gave Alexander the Great the intellect to master war and end the Persian evil or Romanic satanic corruption spreading across the known world, and spread common language and intellectual philosophy, who also died at 33 years of age mysteriously. Prometheus, the Christ, was of course Jesus, the savior of mankind, the torch-bearer, the bearer of light, the spiritual light to battle the evil, whose name is Ahriman, the cup of Nimrod, Sargon of Akkad, the cup-bearer, the cup of knowledge, cup of sciences and materials. The 2 paths of the Bible, both good and evil. Look, I hate to break it to you, but you must understand there are 2 forces at play, coming from the same source. Remember, the tree of knowledge is both good and evil, there is no selection or discernment between the 2. Or the Bible would simply say, God removed the tree of knowledge because Adam can learn evil. And, King Solomon's first gift was the power of discernment, to see into the hearts of men, which even Solomon fell into Ahriman's ignorance, and became drunk. However, each time an occultist uses the tree of knowledge, the occultists will be affected by both good and evil. The cup represents getting drunk on power, drunk of knowledge, where the intellectual consumes them. The torch represents the light of the spiritual. However, even occultists will drink too much to be eventually corrupted, because ego is limitless. Just like King Nebuchadnezzar, remember Christ gives light on his free will, but if you are beside yourself, asking God for favors or personal gains, you will receive Ahriman false light of arrogance, self-destruction or destruction of others. The good, the torch-bearer and the cup are both good and evil. Prometheus is Christ, Christ is Lucifer, Lucifer is Enoch, Enoch is Noah, Noah is Christ, Christ is Jesus the light of man. The evil, Saturn, Ahriman, Satan, Osiris, the false light, the cup, the physical, material, knowledge of conquests, tyrannical laws, weapons, war, self-adornment, hedonism, corrupted religions, titles and rulership, sciences, technology, all things material. Back to this verse, and God gave to Solomon very great wisdom and understanding, and wide intelligence, like the sand on the seashore. For Solomon's scientific knowledge was more extensive than the science of all the Beni Kedem, and than all the science of the Mitzrayim. He knew more than all men of the orbits of the planets, of the origination of light, and fixed sustaining systems, and the results of the revolving spheres. This word, Beni Kedem, is Rishon in the margin, Beni Kedem, the children of the East, Chaldeans. Oh really, you people don't even understand the fucking words. Beni Kedem is an 33rd degree occult called Nashrinas, so for Solomon's scientific knowledge was more extensive than the science of all the Beni Kedem and the Egyptians. Dead Sea Scrolls always tell the truth. But even hardcore Christians can't take the truth, and it's because they read the pagan Old Testament. Christians should only read the New Testament, so why is Enoch banned by the church? Remember, everything not New Testament is completely pagan, but you're reading modern altered, printed Bibles and not Dead Sea Scrolls or even the occult softish rite of Freemasonry religion manuals. You desire to be advanced to the degree of Royal Arch, when this degree was conferred upon Adoniram, Jobit and Stolkin, who first received it, and in whose behalf it was created. They had earned the right to it by a singular service done to Masonry, for, sent to explore the ruins of the ancient temple built by the patriarch, Enoch, they discovered and fearlessly explored a deep shaft sunk perpendicularly in the earth, and descending through 9 arches sealed up front mortal eyes for centuries, they reached the call, hewn in the solid rock, far underground, in which a sacred treasure had been hidden before the flood. And, take now this sacred treasure, the cubical stone hidden deep in the earth by Enoch the patriarch, and return with it whence ye came, 3 zealous brethren, who, as Adoniram, Jobit and Stolkin did before them, have descended through the 9 arches, into the subterranean vault, hewn in the solid rock, and have brought thence the cubical stone, the deposited by Enoch the patriarch, which they desire to lay before, and, who, as Adoniram, Jobit and Stolkin did before them, have descended through the 9 arches, into the subterranean vault, hewn in the solid rock, and have brought thence, and desire to lay before you, the cubical stone the deposited by Enoch. And, behold, my brethren, the ineffable name of deity, engraved by Enoch, and discovered by the 3 first masons of the Royal Arch. You having, like the 3 illustrious masters who first received this degree, descended through the 9 arches, into the subterranean vault hewn in the solid rock, and brought thence the ineffable name deposited there by Enoch the patriarch, the brethren consent that you shall be advanced to be masons of the Royal Arch Ecosize. And, Enoch, the son of Jared, was the 6th in descent from Adam, the father of the human race, filled with the fear and love of God, while the world grew wicked around him, lie adored and revered hints, and obeyed this laws, and strove to lead men in the way of honor and duty. Eel dreamed that the deity appeared to him in visible shape, and said to him, Enoch, thou hast longed to know my true name. Arise, and follow me, and thou shalt learn it. Then it seemed to Enoch that he was taken up, and in an instant transported to a mountain, whose summit was hid among the clouds, and seemed to reach the stars, and there he saw upon the clouds, in letters of brilliant light, the awful and mysterious name, whose pronunciation was then whispered in his ear, and he prohibited from uttering it to any man. Instantly he seemed to be transported from the mountain, and to descend perpendicularly into the earth, passing through 9 subterranean apartments, one below the other, and each roofed with arches, in the 9th and lowest of which he saw, upon a triangular plate of gold, surrounded by brilliant rays of light, the same ineffable name which he had seen upon the mountain, and thereupon he awoke. Enoch, accepting his dream as an inspiration, journeyed in search of the mountain which he had seen in his dream, until, weary of the search, he stopped in the land of Canaan, then already populous with the descendants of Adam, and their employing workmen, and with the help of his son Methuselah, he excavated 9 apartments in the earth, one above the other, and each roofed with arches, as he had seen them in his dream, the lowest being hewn out of the solid rock. In the crown of each arch lie left a narrow aperture, closed with a square stone, and over the upper one lie built a modest temple, roofless, and of huge unhewn stones, to the great architect of the universe. Upon a triangular plate of gold, inlaid with many precious gems, be engraved the ineffable name of God, and sank the plate into one face of a cube of agate, which he then placed upon a pedestal of white alabaster. In the lowest of the 9 apartments, the pedestal was triangular and hollow, and into it, from a crevice in the rock, flowed a stream of inflammable air, that burned continually with a brilliant light, until after it was discovered in the reign of Solomon, none knew of his deposits of this precious treasure, and that it might remain undiscovered, and survive the flood which, it was made known to him, would soon overwhelm all the known world in one vast sea of ruin. He covered the aperture and the stone that closed it, and the great ring of iron, used to raise the stone, with the granite pavement of his primitive temple. Then, fearing that all knowledge of the arts and sciences would be lost in the universal flood, he built 2 great columns upon a high hill, one of brass, to resist water, and one of granite to resist fire. Enoch is telling us he found the main temple 9 arches deep, a vault containing the Atlantean, Cro-Magnon civilization occult secrets, in a roofless temple, which he covered the aperture and the stone that closed it, and the great ring of iron, used to raise the stone, with the granite pavement of his primitive temple. Then, fearing that all knowledge of the arts and sciences would be lost in the universal flood, he built 2 great columns upon a high hill, one of brass, to resist water, and one of granite to resist fire. So, the questions remains, why a fire, and not water from a great flood, somewhere located in Canaan, Palestine? And, Enoch was the first who invented books and different sorts of writing. The ancient Greeks declare that Enoch is the same as Mercury Trismegistus, Hermes, and that he taught the sons of men the art of building cities, and enacted some admirable laws. He discovered the knowledge of the zodiac, and the course of the planets, and he pointed out to the sons of men, that they should worship God, that they should fast, that they should pray, that they should give alms, votive offerings and tenths. He reprobated abominable foods and drunkenness, and appointed festivals for sacrifices to the sun, at each of the zodiacal signs. Now you know, Enoch or Hangakis, his original name, is Hermes, Thoth, Trismegistus, Enoch, Mercury. Enoch made the cubical stone hidden deep in the earth, descended through the 9 arches, into the subterranean vault, hewn in the solid rock, and have brought thence the cubical stone. Enoch was the first who invented books and different sorts of writing. Enoch taught the sons of men the art of building cities, and enacted some admirable laws. He discovered the knowledge of the zodiac, and the course of the planets. Enoch the patriarch. Enoch is the patriarch of Freemasonry. Mercury, Hermes and Thoth, the morning or even star, just and Venus or Jupiter. Enoch is not Adam's grandson or even a man. Enoch is a god. Because, as I keep saying, the Old Testament, that's in every Masonic lodge's cryptic pagan astrology. As the Dead Sea Scrolls keep telling you,